Hello, this is a follow-up video to my Poisonous Concoction Pathfinder build guide. In this video we are going to go over the full endgame setup, which includes large improvements to our damage, defenses, and even more movement speed, along with some additional tech, explanations, a small change to the passive tree, and a short guide to somewhat deterministically craft an insane breach ring to replace Ming's heart, at a much lower cost than you'd have to pay to buy a similar ring. This video is expanding on the original guide, so if you haven't seen that, I will leave a link to it in the description below. So this is our character. We are sitting at level 92, just a hair away from 93. Our Poisonous Concoction is now level 36, with 43,000 DPS. And on top of that, we are now fitting in Snake Bites, while still being capped on all our resistances, now including Chaos. Snake Bites giving us now about 25% more damage, as our poison stacks have moved from 8 to 10. First, I'll just hover over each piece of gear in case anyone just wants to immediately copy it. And then afterwards, I will go over any changes that have been made, most obviously Ingenuity. So, compared to the previous video, we have the same Widowhail, the same quiver, the same neck, the same ring on our left hand here, the same Queen of the Forest, and the same corpse weights. Changes here are now Snake Bites, Ingenuity, this breach ring, which we crafted ourselves, and the anoint on this amulet here being lasting trauma, which is over here, grants 5% reduced attack speed, and then 30% increased magnitude of ailments to inflict, along with 20% increased duration of damaging ailments on enemies. Very strong notable. This does cost a suffering oil though, so just be aware of that. I think at the time of this video it's about 110 exalts for just that one oil, but the other two are really cheap. Other than that, we have this new breach ring here. Crazy ring. 45% increased chaos damage, 97 max life. Maximum mana doesn't really matter, but it's nice kinda. Fire res and chaos resistance there. I forgot to mention this in the initial recording of this footage, but yes, ideally you would like to have 2 of these rings instead of just the one I have here. That would be the ideal endgame setup. Using this with our Ingenuity, that is a 77% roll. Ingenuity is working with this ring here to give us somewhere around 85 to 90% increased chaos damage, as well as capping our chaos res with just this ring pretty much. Stats you're looking for here are going to be chaos damage, chaos resistance, maximum life, any other resistance that you need, and preferably evasion rating, but unfortunately we did not get that. I'll go over this more in a second when I show you how to craft this ring pretty deterministically. Next, I will go over the Snake Bites. We are now able to fit these in because of Ingenuity, and a giant amount of resistance is now coming from just these 2 rings, allows us to fit this in. This is just for bossing though. When you're not bossing, I recommend a pair of gloves like this. These are essentially a 0 stat glove. The only thing that is giving us is a ton of evasion rating. That is the only stat I would personally look for, as just these gloves alone with this amount of evasion rating is giving us almost 18% movement speed. That's a big difference. As you can see, we are now up to 106% movement speed with the offhand swapped, and up to 75%. We get a little bit of extra evasion rating after we do our dodge roll or blink. We have a new helmet here. It's basically the same thing, just a giant chunk of energy shield. I had to get just one resistance on here, being cold resistance, to cap myself out on that. Also, finding one line of stat somewhere on your gear would be very nice. It can be any stat, as you can just change your travel points into whatever else that you need. As for our other ring, it's still the same ring as last time. It's just resistances and life. Some rarity on there. Amulet, again, still the same thing, just life, increased maximum energy shield, and +3 projectiles with some stuff. Next up, I'm going to go over some boss gear swapping tech that I've been doing. Here we have just a evasion rating energy shield chest. You just want to get as much evasion rating and energy shield as you can on it. This one has life. I think you could honestly forego the life and just get more evasion rating and energy shield, and that would be fine. This is a pretty crappy one, but it is important that out of all the stats on the gear, you have just the cold resistance, because Queen of the Forest does have 28% cold resistance. Also need to make sure that the 12 lightning resistance coming from there is not undercapping your lightning resistance. As you can see, when we throw this chest on, we currently have 1,697 energy shield with the Queen of the Forest on. And with this chest, we go up to 2,600. So that's a pretty big difference and makes a lot of a difference for bossing. Also, we just have a pair of boots here as well. All you want on here are going to be the movement speed, again, the largest amount of evasion, remedy, and energy shield that you can afford, and a large chunk of life as well. All the suffixes, once again, do not matter, as all of our resistances are being taken care of by our rings. We have made one little adjustment to our passive tree here. We have dropped this line up here and these nodes in favor of the +1 all chaos skills wheel here. And to recoup this lost jewel socket, we came down here and for less points got the jewel socket down here. Other than that, we are now onto the gems. Everything here is still the exact same with just a few little differences. Our vine arrow I have de-leveled to just a level 3 one. This way it costs way less mana, and you can spam it on bosses very comfortably now. The high level version costs roughly 8 times as much mana. It's literally ridiculous. And the damage here does not change, because we do not care about the damage that the vine does as a base. The only line that we care about is poisoning the plant causes it to deal chaos damage per second equal to 50% of poison damage per second. This might be a text bug, but down here it says 110. I'm not sure which is true, but yeah. Other than that, I think there have been no other changes. Besides, Grim Feast is now being taken off in favor of Alchemist Boon for bossing. For mapping, you want to turn on Grim Feast, but for bossing, untick that, turn on Alchemist Boon for just a little more flash charge generation. Also, we have added in Shield Charge attached to our offhand setup. I haven't been using it a ton, but it is quite nice. When you press it, you get a pretty giant distance covered there. It does self-stun you a little bit at the end there, which is why you can do some tech where you charge and then blink at the end, and it basically cancels the little self-stun that it would do otherwise, like that. So that's pretty nice. Next, we're going to talk about sustaining mana flash charges on bosses. Again, in the bossing setup, we're using Alchemist Boon for grants 0.27 flash charges per second. And from there, you have two options. You can either use a mana flask that has the gains 0.25 charges per second mod on it, or you can do what I'm going to do and just use a mana flask that has the increased charges on there. This will give you about 17 more throws of Poisonous Concoction with this line right here. As you can see, it has 124 max charges compared to the 75 on this one. Unfortunately, you cannot get both of these lines together, and there are two main reasons that I am going to be using this flask over this flask. First of all, I am putting down all the bosses in the game long before I run out of flask charges, and with this flask, even more so. Second of all, the amount of passive point investment required to fully sustain your mana flasks is astronomical. Just for example here, I have allocated Connected Chemistry, please do not do this, and unallocated Traveler's Wisdom and the point up to it. These 2 points alone are giving us 6 passive points. I have also unspec'd some random nodes and allocated 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 increased flash charges gained nodes for a total cost of 12 points already. If I put on this gains charges per second flask again and start spamming Poisonous Concoction, as you can see, we are still not sustaining. Therefore, I believe that it is much more worth it to just omit going for the increased charges per second altogether and just go for some extra maximum charges. Next, I'm going to talk about the mods that you want to look for on your jewels, and off of that, I'm going to talk a little bit about how the increased bonuses gained from equipped quiver line works and its breakpoints. The mods that you're going to be looking for on your jewels are going to be increased effect of equipped quiver. You are likely going to need this on almost all of your jewels, but again, I will go over that in a second. Next is going to be increased magnitude of poison you inflict, increased magnitude of ailments you inflict, increased projectile damage, increased attack damage, and increased flash charges gained. A little quality of life line that you could have on your suffix would be attack speed, as well as increased life recovery from flasks for a little added recovery. Now I will talk about the increased bonuses gained from Equip Quiverline, its breakpoints, and what you need to get a level 35 Poisonous Concoction. This footage was recorded before the changes I made to the passive tree, so now Poisonous Concoction will end up at level 36. Please just keep that in mind as you see this. This is including the +3 level to all projectile skills we have on our amulet. Our quiver has +2 level of all projectile skills on it, so this means for every 50% increased bonuses gained from Equip Quiver we will gain +1 gem level to Poisonous Concoction. One important thing to note here is about how breakpoints work in Path of Exile. All numbers round down. So if you have 49%, it will give you no levels. You need at least 50% to gain the +1. This means that we are going to need a total of 450% increased effects gained from Equip Quiver to have a level 35 Poisonous Concoction. To reach this breakpoint, I will go over the math that you can do to figure out exactly what you need. First, take your Widow Hale's roll, which in my case is 293, add 80, which is coming from these 5 passive points on the tree here, which for me totals 373. Next, take that number and subtract it from the 450% you will need, which for me totals 77. You then divide that number by 6 for the 6 jewel sockets that we have on the tree to see how much increased quiver effect you will need on average for each jewel to reach the 450% breakpoint, which for me is 12.8%. Keep in mind, you can have a combination of higher and lower values on your jewels as long as you are totaling that 450% increase quiver effect. This will require a minimum corruption of 280% increased effect on your Widow Hale. Keep in mind though that if you get exactly 280%, you will need to have 6 perfectly rolled jewels with 15% increased bonuses gained from Equipped Quiver. Therefore, I highly recommend to get the highest corruption that you can on your Widow Hale to make it much easier to get good jewels. Finally, I will show you guys how to craft a ring like this breach ring here, somewhat deterministically. It's still a little bit RNG, but it's the best that we got right now. So, you have 2 things here, the Essence of Ruin and the Greater Essence of Ruin. The really nice thing about Chaos mods on rings is there are only 2 that exist, Chaos Damage and Chaos Resistance. So all you have to do is get yourself some breach rings, either by running breach or perhaps the breach stone. The best base you can get is an item level 82 one, because that is when you can roll the maximum tier of elemental resistances. Chaos Resistance itself is actually 81, so 82 covers everything. So all you want to do is get a ring like this. You slap your Essence of Ruins on there. We get 24% increased chaos damage. Hey, that's pretty good. Then you just augment. You get something. It is what it is. If you fail or you don't like your second mod here, you can go for the annul. For now, I'm not going to do it. But that would be the lazy way, as annuls are a little bit expensive. So you could just get an additional ring and start over if you do not like your second mod. After that, though, you reach for the Greater Essence of Ruin, apply, and you are guaranteed to hit the other mod that you did not get, either Chaos Damage or Chaos Resistance. From here, all you have to do is grab your Exalted Orbs, and you slam. Evasion rating, hey, that's pretty good. Intelligence, Maximum mana, So, from here, you can then go for the Chaos Orbs. I actually don't hate this ring, so I'm not going to go for it. Maybe I can sell this one. But ideally, what you're looking for here is a resistance or life. Now, there's something else that you can do here on your next ring, is that if you get a really good tier of chaos resistance and quality to max with the chaos modifiers, and you're capped on your chaos resistance, you could then instead go for the basic essence again. You would want to hit chaos damage like this, preferably a higher roll. Again, do the same thing, searching for another mod, either annul or reach for your next ring. Then you can use the Greater Essence of Flames or the Lightning or Cold versions to go for the resistance that you need exactly. This is less deterministic because it does share the same mod pool with adds damage to attacks of a certain element. So we'll just go ahead and click it. Here we failed, we lost the 50-50 and got fire damage to attacks. So this was a failure. But you can hit fire resistance this way. Also, all elemental resistance is included and has the fire tag. You can do this with, again, any of the other 3 essences that exist, the lightning or cold versions, and use this to deterministically go for the resistance that you need on the other ring. This is how I'm going to get my other breach ring. This thing's going to be a little bit hard to replace, though. The absolute best possible mods on a breach ring, in my opinion, would be the chaos damage with life and evasion rating as your 3 prefixes. Then for your suffixes, you want to look for chaos resistance, a res that you need. You could also get a stat on here, as we have on this particular ring, and that would be pretty nice. So that is going to be it from me. If you found any information in this video helpful, or you're enjoying playing this build, please like the video. If you want to see follow-ups to this build, or builds I create in the future, please subscribe. I'm going to be making a Blood Witch next, who is going to be life stacking to the maximum degree. I'm going to be using the Veil of the Night here for no elemental resistances, and I'm pretty sure that this helmet actually has some very interesting mechanics that people are not aware of yet, so I'm thinking it's going to be a pretty good build. I'm going to leave a little bit of raw footage at the end here again, just showing a quick T4 Zesht kill. Keep in mind that it's going to look a little slower than it actually is, as this was before I swapped the passive tree to have the level 36 Poisonous Concoction. It'll be about 20% more damage at this point. But I do also have the updated damage on a T3 Zesht kill, so I will put that first and then the T4 after that. Thanks for watching.
Hi, I'm Chris Wilson from Grinding Gear Games.
Subscribe now and like the video.